To the latest edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show, along with Zach Meisel. I'm Adam the Bull, and we got a lot to talk about. Tanner Bibee has a sore shoulder. Big deal or not a big deal? And the Guardians have seemed to have righted the ship on the field, winning their fourth straight. Plus, Zach's going to break down how much it'll cost the rest of us to get that athletic shirt that he is sporting right now. Zach, do we have access to that? Can we buy one?
I don't even know how I would have access to it. I also want to know, where does Yellow Submarine rank in terms of a pitcher or hitter's walk up or warm up song, which is what Ben Lively has used all season?
It's a great question. Oddly enough, my son and I were just singing that song in the car this week. And it had nothing to do with Ben Lively. We were just singing it because he's obsessed with the Beatles right now. But that's all coming up. You never know what you're going to get right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. All right, here we are. It's a Friday. We're into August now. Down the stretch we come. Final 8 weeks of the season. And the Guardians, who struggled there for a while, Zach, are playing good baseball right now. They win the first game against the Orioles. We know that, the Orioles are one of their top competitors to win the American League. And Guardians take care of business. We talked just on Wednesday about the All-Stars playing like All-Stars. Well, they did. The top of the lineup, the first 5 guys, including Lane Thomas, who's new to this lineup, all had big days yesterday. Ben Lively pitched well, and the Guardians won their 4th straight.
They have the best record in baseball against teams with winning records. So it's a reminder. I mean, we've seen them flounder against the Tigers, and they lost 2-3 to the Padres, the Rays. It just looked like they were in a malaise there for a couple weeks, and we wondered, is this just who they are, who they're going to be the rest of the way? And all they needed was the 2 teams with the best records aside from them in the other dugout, and then they'd play better. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a reminder of just a baseball season and how there are ebbs and flows to this. And it's rare for a team's stars to all play poorly at the same time. And I think that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, that when they're hitting home runs, whether they're using that fake jet stream or not, like it really helps. It makes such a difference. I mean, to get a 3-run homer from David Fry, like we saw it Sunday in Philadelphia, the 3-run bomb from Giancarlo Noel, it just changes the complexion of a game. And that's the way the Orioles usually beat teams.
That's right.
And that's what the Guardians did.
Yeah. David Fry, I guess, was just told he couldn't hit home runs in July, because he hit one on June 30th, and then he hits one again on August 1st. So maybe, he'll get hot again this month. But yeah, it's amazing how you don't look lethargic when you're hitting home runs. And you said something the other day. People love putting up their power rankings on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show the other day. There was a topic about where the Browns were in the power rankings, and power rankings are so stupid. They're completely meaningless. And you said the other day, the only thing that matters is the record, right? I saw a power rankings yesterday. The Guardians were either 4th or 5th. I'm like, they have the best record. They're the best. Now, I know you want to bring up division. Okay, I would say this. First of all, the AL Central is better than it's been in a long time.
Could have 3 playoff teams.
Exactly. And number 2, and even the Tigers they're not bad. The Tigers are a competitive team. Obviously, the White Sox are maybe the worst team ever, but besides that. And it's not like it used to be where you got to play the White Sox 19 times. Now you play them 12, which, okay, that's more than the Yankees get to play them, but not that much more. So the schedules are relative. And then in terms of interleague, everybody's playing everybody. So there's no big schedule advantage like the Guardians used to have. They still have a slight advantage, I guess. But you know what? I don't really know that that's the case, besides the White Sox, because the rest of the East and Central kind of match up.
And they haven't capitalized on that.
They haven't. That's fair, yeah.
The White Sox could very well wind up as the worst team in Major League history.
Yes.
They've lost 17 in a row. They're 27-84. And they just traded some decent players.
Yeah.
So they could just get worse here.
Yeah.
And yet, of their 27 wins, I think 5 of them are against Cleveland. It's their most wins against any team in the league,
which is insane.
It's 20% of their win total is against the best team in the league. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's almost frustrating in a way
Yeah.
because I think it's really important for the Guardians to get a first round bye.
Yeah.
They need a top 2 seed. They're in position to do that now, but they'd be even better position if they would have beaten up on the White Sox and the Tigers a little more. But I mean, it shows you we spent so much time in April and May trying to figure out how this team was doing it,
Yeah.
and now I think we're just at the point where, I mean, I almost think not that stretch of 3 weeks or whatever was a good thing, but I think it reinforced that people's expectations changed.
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
now it's not like, "Hey, this is a cool start and it's neat what they're doing and not sure how and it won't last." Now it's I think fans and media alike think like that's the expectation. Like
Yeah.
that's the standard we're gonna hold you to now because you've played so well for so long and you've shown you have staying power.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, today we're exactly at the 2/3 point of the season because the Guardians have 54 games left, which is 1/3 of the season. So they are what they are. You at this point in the season, you are what you are. I mean, it's no you don't get to the best record in baseball through 108 games or whatever it is as a fluke.
Mhm.
That's impossible. The Guardians are, and I tweeted this week. The Guardians are a legitimate World Series contender. There's no doubt about it. Their lineup is good enough. Their bullpen is fantastic, and their starting pitching is hopefully good enough. Now, if anything's going to unravel them, it's going to be that. It's probably going to be, if it's anything, it's injuries to the starting pitching. And we'll talk about Tanner Bibee in a second and hope for the best there. But this team is really, really good. And just because we didn't think they would be really, really good before the season doesn't mean that it's a mirage. As you said, in April, it could have been a mirage. In May, it could have been. By this point, it's not. It's clearly not.
I think we know that they can win some games
Yeah.
the way they won in Philly, where get just enough starting pitching,
Yeah.
lean on that dominant bullpen, and you hope you have enough hitting. And like the Noel home run, again, that's just a
Yeah.
good example of when you can't string together singles and run all over the place. Like sometimes you need that 3-run homer. So what they did last night, I think, is an encouraging sign that they don't have to play that slash and dash style all the time.
Right.
You get a home run from Fry. Bo Naylor is lurking there at the bottom of the lineup, and we haven't really seen it. He's shown flashes this season, but remember, he ended last season as one of the hottest hitters in the league. The last
Yeah, he
6
did.
weeks of the season, he hit 321 with an OPS over 1100. So that's in there. I think it would be really beneficial if you have just someone lurking there at the bottom of the lineup who can deliver that 3-run homer. Jose Ramirez could very well set a career high in home runs this season. So it just provides you. We saw in 2022 in the playoffs, like they didn't have that.
Right.
When you can't string together singles and doubles against Garrett Cole because his stuff is just so dominant, you need that threat of a home run. And I think they have that now. And so just it offers you different ways to win. And I think that's the key is if there's a day where you need more than a couple runs because the starting pitching isn't there, or maybe the bullpen falters for the first time ever. They have to have enough offense to help them win, and I
Yeah.
think they've shown for most of the season that they have that. I think the Lane Thomas addition can go a long way to helping that too.
No doubt. And we've talked about this before. LeBron James is going to play well in the playoffs. You don't know with even the greatest hitters. Jose Ramirez is the best Guardians player in a long time. I don't know that he's not going to go 2 for 23 in a first round series. And the Guardians, because they're limited in the back of their lineup, are going to need their all-stars to play like all-stars, or at least some of them to play like all-stars in the playoffs. And if it doesn't happen, they probably won't win. And if it does, they probably will win. And you can say that about a lot of teams in the playoffs. They have maintained the home run pace as of this morning. They're tied for 10th in home runs per game. I mean, we would never have thought that before the season, that this deep into the year, they'd be tied for 10th in home runs per game. And by the way, real quick, Zach, I think what's interesting is early in the year, they were weighed down. It was weighed heavily with home runs, and they're still hitting more at home per game, but they're now over 1 home run per game on the road. And a month or so ago, they were at like 0.85 on the road, or 0.8 something. So the fact that they're averaging more than a homer a game on the road, I think, is pretty promising as well.
Whoever hits the next home run for them,
yeah,
is going to hit the home run that ties their total as a team from last year.
Yeah, it's amazing. On August 2nd, potentially.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So that says a lot, because last season, I think they were like 30 behind the second worst power team in the league.
Yeah.
And as you said, they're 10th now. So yeah, it's going to basically take 2/3 of the season to get to where they were last year. And it's not because you have a bunch of guys hitting 20 home runs. Kwan is the one who stands out, who's had a lot more power, but it's been Ramirez and Naylor, and then a bunch of guys who, Bo Naylor's got 8, Will Brennan's got 8, David Fry's got 9, Tyler Freeman's got 7. But that doesn't, Noel already has 6, but that does make a difference where it's,
yes,
when you had Straw and Hedges at the bottom of the lineup, there was no chance of anything.
Right.
And at least there's a little bit of a chance of something.
They had, so guys that hit more than 11 home runs for the Guardians last year. Ramirez had 24, Naylor had 17, and Andres Jimenez had 15. They had 3 guys with more than 11 home runs. Now, as you said, Jose's already got 28. Naylor's already got 23. Kwan's got 11, so he'll go over 11. You'd think David Fry would, sitting at 9 now. Bo Naylor, you think he'd go over 11. I think it's possible we could see, Kwan, Fry, and Naylor all hitting around 15 home runs this year.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy who's not getting to his total last year, that's Andres Jimenez. Zach, the OPS is down to 631 on Andres Jimenez. If the Guardians could get out of that contract right now, do you think they would 100% do it or no?
No, I don't.
Wow.
He's still the best defensive player in the league, and
that's a lot.
He's
to pay
young
for
enough.
Guys not hitting.
I mean, but he's young. First of all, they've struggled so much to find answers in the middle infield that even if they have half of an answer with him, he offers so much. He's got 16 stolen bases.
Yeah.
And he's demonstrated he can hit. So he's 25. Like, I think they would still hold out hope, but I mean, he's critical. You think about like that lineup last night, he didn't play, but the top 6 against lefties, when you put Lane Thomas there hitting second, and he was ripping the ball, and he's fast, and the arm, even from center field, the arm looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
That lineup looks a lot better. He's hitting second.
Oh, yeah.
You had Fry 5th, Noel 6th. By the way, was it Tyvis who said Giancarlo Noel, his bold prediction was he was going to wind up with like 20 home runs or something?
At the beginning of the year?
He said, no, I think it was at the All-Star break. He had
It might have been. Tyvis also predicted at the beginning of the year, his bold prediction at the beginning of the year is that the Guardians would be in the top 15 in home runs, and we all laughed at him.
Yeah, he should be hosting the show.
That's right.
But I don't think Noel's going to get there because I don't think he's going to play enough. But he's got 6 home runs in 66 at-bats.
I like it.
I mean, if he plays, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think so. He was hitting 6th last night.
Right.
And that bottom 3 is still, you had Freeman, Rocchio, and Naylor. It's not ideal by any means. But if Bo Naylor, that's the one guy to me who is so key, because if he gets hot there, it lengthens the lineup, and then in each third of the lineup, you feel like there's a threat.
Right.
And it'll be interesting because I could also say, if Andres Jimenez is in there hitting 7th instead, it's the same thing. It's you don't want the opposition to have an inning where they're going to face 3 hitters that they're confident they can just go 1, 2, 3.
Andres Jimenez in 2022 had 46 extra base hits. Last year, he actually had more last year, 47 extra base hits. This year, again, we're at the 2/3 point of the season. He's at 21 extra base hits. So he's way off his pace in terms of extra base hits. I agree with you. I don't think they'd get out of the contract. I'm not giving up on Andres Jimenez. I think the reality on Andres Jimenez is he's not the offensive player that we saw that one great season, but he's not the offensive player we're seeing now either. I think probably what we saw last year with like a league average OPS is probably closer to who he is offensively. And I could live with league average offense with him because he's so elite defensively. But it'd be interesting to see if presumably he moves to shortstop this offseason, will he still be as good? I assume he will be, but will he
came up
be the best? No, I know he came up as shortstop.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Now
it's tough. He doesn't hit the ball hard at all.
No.
It's like his strikeout rate has improved a ton, but who cares? I'd rather see you.
Yeah.
That just means you're putting the ball in play more, but you're putting weak contact in play more.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Quan, where it's if you could just hit the ball harder, even if that means more swing and miss, that's probably going to be beneficial. But he just does not. Like last year, I think he was the worst, or if not one of the worst, in terms of like exit velocity.
Right.
And he's a little bit better this year. It's not by much, but like the chase rate is terrible, which means he's making so much contact, but that he's making contact on pitches out of the zone, which is going to result in your slow roller to second base, your pop up. So it's not a good combination. I don't know how you get him back to what he was 2 years ago.
All right, we're going to talk about Tanner Bibee in a sec. It will also take the comments. If you're commenting in our chat room, we'll get to your comments in a second. First, I got to talk to you about the Game Time app, folks. Listen, if you're going to baseball games in the summer, if you're thinking about going to see Billy Joel and Rod Stewart at Brown Stadium in September, or to wrestling, whatever it is that you're looking for tickets for, you got to use the Game Time app. Any high-profile event, the closer you get to game day, the more the prices will go down. I have a friend that I don't know, 6 months ago or so, got Bruce Springsteen tickets for under $100 because they were patient and they waited and eventually got a great deal. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets for MLB or anything else with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, we get back to it. And Zach, Tanner Bibee, Guardians announcing yesterday, sore shoulder, and his start's being pushed back. I know you and I were speculating before the show. You thought maybe he'd go Monday against Arizona. I asked you before the show how concerned you were. You seem like you're not concerned. That gave me let me breathe a little. You never know with the Guardians because they're kind of close to the vest when it comes to injuries. But the one thing we talked about when they didn't go as far as they could have and probably should have in terms of acquiring pitching was that there's no margin for error in terms of injuries. Tanner Bibee has clearly been their ace this year. They need him healthy, and shoulder soreness got me nervous, but you're not, at least right now, that nervous. You feeling okay?
I think there should always be a level of concern and skepticism when it's a pitcher injury, especially when it's a shoulder or an elbow. And I don't know. You would want him facing the Orioles. I know that. It's going to be tough the next 2 days with Carlos Carrasco and Joey Cantillo. And then Sunday you get Gavin Williams, but the Orioles will send Corbin Burns to the mound. So they need Bibee, obviously. I think he's the staff ace at this point. And they're downplaying this. They're saying it's just a couple days to give him just a little bit extra of a breather. It's just some shoulder tightness. But I was looking at his velocity from his last start. And he pitched Monday in Detroit, 6 innings. He was pretty good. He started the 7th, and he threw, I think it was like 10 pitches in the 7th inning before Pedro Avila came in.
Yeah.
And he only threw 2 fastballs, and they were 91 and 92, which is, he's usually 94, 95. So a little concern there, and I wonder if they saw something and they said, because he was up to 95 pitches, and wonder if they noticed that and they were like, okay, like let's, not that you'd let him go much longer anyway, but that might have been concerning because the previous inning, his last fastball of the inning, or he went 94, 91.5 and then 92. So,
that's weird.
He was trending in the wrong direction. I don't know. I've walked past him and said hello to him and chatted really quick with him a few times since then. And he certainly didn't voice any concern that anything was wrong. You never know. Guys
Yeah.
don't want to admit to anything ever. Josh Naylor apparently has been beat up all season, but refuses. No one will talk about what he's been dealing with. So that's just the
General
way it is.
body soreness.
It's the fact that they're saying it's just a couple days, and Vogt talked about it pregame, and then we even followed up postgame, and he said he kind of tried to assure us, like, hey, we're just pushing him back a couple days. This is not an injured list thing, but he did say like they'd have clarity on it either today or tomorrow.
Okay. Well, then, he says it's not an injured list thing, but if they're waiting for clarity on something, then things could change, certainly.
I think maybe just the day that he'll go.
Okay. So it wasn't
know,
like they're waiting for some results of a test.
No, I don't think so. But it's also, we were talking about this, Bull, and it's like they've got a lot to sort out here because you've got two guys rehabbing,
Yeah.
Alex Cobb and Matthew Boyd. And Cobb is going to be one start Saturday, and then he's good to go. Boyd went last night. I think he got up to like 63 pitches. And I think the plan was for him to get one more. They haven't said that, but I think they were leaning that way. But now, do you stick with that? You've got a doubleheader Friday in Minnesota that complicates things.
Right.
So it's a lot to sort out, and I don't know what the best way to do it. I was thinking, I thought it was weird that Xavier Curry didn't cover the last 2 innings last night, or Pedro Avila is the long guys. And then I was thinking, well, you're probably going to need those guys for Carrasco and Cantillo the next 2 days because those guys don't go 6-7 innings. So there's so much to sort out in terms of like, if you think Bibee can be his normal self and go 100 pitches,
right?
Like what day do you want him on so that you're not burning your bullpen and your long guys consecutive days? There's a lot that goes into this.
Right. And even when Cobb comes back, like how many innings is he going to pitch his first couple of starts? How careful are they going to be with him? Now, he's been rehabbing for a while from the hip surgery, but then he got the blister. So, if he comes through the start tomorrow, okay, I would think he'll pitch next weekend, whether it's in the doubleheader or, over Saturday or Sunday. I would think next weekend he's pitching against Minnesota.
And remember the doubleheader, you can add
the 27th
an extra player. So do you have that be Cobb, or do you have Cobb join the regular roster and then add someone else from AAA? Like there's
right.
They love to get creative and try to maximize how far they can push the roster. So we'll see what they end up doing. But there's a lot of, this ties back to everything we said leading up to the deadline, which is the rotation was the Achilles heel. It's something that they are day by day scrambling to figure out. How do they survive the next day, week, month? And that's not changing, at least not in the next few weeks. So you're still trying to get by with guys who have pitch count limits, coming off injuries, major injuries, by the way. And none of that's going to change. And, part of the reason we were saying, like, you got to go get sure-handed starting pitching was you never know if who you already have could get injured. In 2016, you lost Carrasco and Salazar in September. And that completely changed the dynamic of how you have to win games.
And then Bauer cut off his finger, essentially.
Yeah.
The rest is history. Let's get to some fan comments. Let's start. Here we go. B Skrill's 51-31 against the American League, 15-11 against the National League. Only 24 wins away from a 90-game winning season. Let's go Guards. I believe they can and will finish the season with 93, 95 wins. I'm expecting them to win more than that.
I think they're on pace for 99 now.
Yeah, I think they'll win between 95 and 100. That's what I'm expecting. Let's see. Rusty says, that's why you push your chips in and get Flaherty, and we would be outstanding. Yeah, listen, if they had got, like we said, I think we both agreed, we're okay with the Cobb move. If he was the second best pitcher they brought in, you would have loved it as an extra ticket. As the first pitcher you bring in, you're like, there's, if he's healthy, he's fine. But it's a big if at 30.
Yeah, they love Matthew Boyd. It's amazing the way they talk about him. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe my baseball reference page for him loads differently
Yeah,
than everybody else's, but he was a league average starter at his peak,
yeah.
slightly above maybe, and that was 5 or 6 years ago.
I mean, you never know with them, right? Like Ben Lively had been a nothing his whole career, but he was here the whole off season. Boyd hasn't been here that long. Maybe they got maybe there's something they've seen in him for years from the distance that they're putting into play. But he's also coming off a major surgery, so
Right.
I don't know. Let's see. Old Ben Andres has looked pretty good at the plate lately. I think. I don't know. Do you feel like he's looked better at the plate lately?
He had a couple good games on the road trip. I just y- the 5 home runs. He
Yeah.
doesn't walk ever. It's
No.
hard. It's hard to like sustain anything when
Yeah.
you just don't have the plate discipline.
That's right, and that's been a problem, without a doubt. Jarrett Guzik Music says, "Hope Guards win. Little nervous about tonight with Cookie. Don't love our odds." Yeah, I mean, when Cookie pitches, you're holding your breath. At least Joey Cantillo is a prospect. I mean, so there is some upside there. At this point, every time Carrasco pitches, you hope you can get him through 5 innings with 3. If 5 innings, 3 runs, and you can live with it. That's where you're at with him.
It's also worth noting, I mean, we talked about this a little bit the other day, but like the Guardians crushed Trevor Rogers last night,
Yeah,
who the Orioles gave up quite a bit for.
yeah,
They'll get Dean Kramer tonight, who's not
right. No,
too special. Zach Eflin tomorrow, who he was really good last year, but he has been very pedestrian this
yeah,
season. He was their other big trade deadline acquisition. This is not a team like their lineup is scary, but
yeah.
the Orioles are still a team whose rotation is not daunting.
I would say, Zach, the good thing here, when you look at at least, so the Astros, Yankees, and Orioles are the biggest threats to the Guardians in the playoffs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I kind of think the Mariners are still going to win that division.
Okay. All right,
But
fine.
sure.
The Mariners are the only team of the group we just mentioned. So we'll say the Mariners, the Astros, the Yankees, and the Orioles. The Mariners are the only team in that group that I believe has a significantly better starting rotation than the Guardians. Right? Yeah, I mean, certainly you take Corbin Burns over anybody the Guardians have right now because he's more proven. He's done a lot. But the rest of their rotation, I like Grayson Rodriguez. Nobody else in their rotation is particularly good. You look at the Yankees. We know what Garrett Cole is, but he hasn't been that this year. He's missed most of the season. He just had to start pushed back as well, same as Tanner Bibee. So he's not at his best. Their rotation, they don't have a disaster at the end like the Guardians have right now and like the Orioles. But their guys are all kind of, Rodon and Stroman. Those guys are all okay. They're all middle of the rotation starters.
And you're not going to be, I say this now.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be leaning on Carlos Carrasco in October.
Right. Yeah. He's not pitching.
You go Bibee, Williams, Lively, and Cobb in some order.
Right. Yes.
And that can, if that's the weak link of your team, like that's not bad for a weak link.
That's not like the realistic upside, not the pie in the sky upside, but the realistic upside of that 4 is not bad. Is not bad, especially if you say, okay, Lively, just do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And he's done it all year, so it's not crazy to think he would continue. And he
just beat the Phillies and the Orioles.
Exactly. I mean,
he's earned the benefit of the doubt at this point.
There's no doubt at this point. Yeah. I was not. I was expecting the shoe to drop for much of the season. At this point, I'm anticipating a good start from him when he pitches because he's done it almost every time. Astros rotation too. I mean, they gave up a ton for Kikuchi. So I just don't look at their rotation as all that impressive. And the Guardians bullpen is way better than Houston. It's way better than the Orioles. It's better. It's way better than the Yankees. And it's better than the Mariners. They have a way better bullpen than most of those teams. So, yeah, while again, and outside of the Mariners, who are the one team that's significantly better rotation, their lineup stinks. It's worse than the Guardians lineup. I mean, I said that as if the Guardians lineup isn't good. The Guardians lineup is good. It's not as good as the Orioles. But the Yankees lineup, we know what Soto and Judge are. Obviously, they're superstars. The rest of their lineup is nothing special. I know Chisholm's been really good since they got him. And maybe
they've had Austin Wells hitting cleanup a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they got some slappies in that lineup, no doubt.
I think we've said the American League is wide open.
Yeah.
And there's depth to it. In a short series, like the Twins and Royals can beat somebody. The Red Sox even. But the bottom line is, I think if you're those other teams, I don't think Cleveland's a team you're excited to play either.
No, not at all.
Especially if you have to come here. I think it's going to be a really interesting last 2 months, basically, and then playoffs. I think it looked for a while. I think we were thinking in April and May, like, hey, maybe the Guardians can get to the playoffs, and it's a launching point, and it's a springboard to whatever happens next year. Because the Orioles and the Yankees looked like titans.
Yes,
and it was going to be there was no way they'd beat those teams, but maybe you win a wild card series like they did 2 years ago. And now that's changed. We said this at the beginning of this episode. Like, it's the standards are different. You get to this point in the season with the best record. You've beaten the best teams. It's the expectations are different. And now it's like you can beat the Orioles in a series. You legitimately, they could get to the World Series. They could win the world. Like I never thought we'd be saying this in August. I thought we'd be, still doing one episode a week here, and we'd spend like 10 minutes talking about when they should call up Chase DeLauder, and then we'd spend 20 minutes talking about, when Nick Chubb might return. And instead, we've got 2 episodes a week talking about a team that could wind up the number 1 seed in the American League. It's insane, but when that happens, and everyone in that room would tell you that's the goal. They want those expectations.
That's right. And Zach, we always talk about the starting pitching, the bullpen, the hitting, but the 2 things don't get mentioned as much that the Guardians are elite at: base running and fielding. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's like we compare to the other teams, but when it comes to bullpen, base running, fielding, I'd put the Guardians up against any team in baseball. I can't imagine there's any team in baseball you put those 3 things. Yes, there's teams that have better lineups, and there's teams that have better rotations. But there's nobody. Bullpen, base running, fielding, Guardians are the best.
And I'll say this. This is not a coincidence, but Rocchio and Jimenez, look, they have left a lot to be desired offensively.
Yeah.
They are really good defensively.
Right.
And it is not a coincidence that the pitcher they traded for, Alex Cobb, is a guy who historically, year after year, has one of the highest ground ball rates of any pitcher.
Good
and
point.
it is the first thing he noticed is he said, well, I might as well just keep throwing sinkers and splitters and having guys pound it into the ground and let those guys go to work. And because that's a good formula for any pitcher.
That's right. All right, Zach, that's going to do it for today. Great show as always. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We'll be back on Monday. We're going to try to get consistent with these 9 a.m. shows. It seems to be working. Maybe we'll have Kyle Manzardo up soon. Oh, it doesn't look like it. But we're not talking about calling them up because there's nothing to play for. Calling them up to make them even better, potentially. We'll see. We'll talk maybe more about that on Monday. We'll see. By Monday, we'll know how the series goes with the Orioles, and we'll look ahead to the Diamondback series. Again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being in the chat. We'll read more chats next week. Make sure you've subscribed to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Zach, what do you got going on? You got a column coming out today? Anything going on?
Yeah, so CC Sabathia is getting inducted into the Team Hall of Fame this weekend. The list of guests, I think, is pretty extensive. Not just from his era either. A lot of guys coming back. And I've got a story up on The Athletic this morning from some people who were with him around the time that he was drafted and was just getting a start in Cleveland's organization. So it's pretty cool. Carl Willis teaching him what a fastball was in Burlington, North Carolina in 1998 because in high school before they drafted him, he could throw 97 and no hitter in Vallejo, California could touch him. So why did he need to even know where to put his fingers on the seams or how to throw a changeup? So Some fun stories on CC.
And I think I mentioned this before, but I saw him pitch for the Mahoning Valley Scrappers. I called a game against the Batavia Muck Dogs in 1999 when he was playing in the New York Penn League. And you knew then. I saw him pitch, and I was like, ooh, this guy's different. You don't look like the rest of these guys. I also saw Coco Crisp there at that point, although he was going by Covelli at the time, not Coco.
The story of they spent so much time before the draft trying to figure out if his body would hold up and trying to find another pitcher who had a similar body type, and they couldn't find anybody. The closest comparison they got was Bob Veal, who pitched for the Pirates in the 60s.
Yeah. What about David Wells?
Yeah. I don't know. He didn't come up, I guess, for some
Rick
reason.
Russell, maybe?
I think because of the athleticism. CC was so athletic.
It's true, yeah.
That even under all that weight, like he could do things that most pitchers couldn't. And also, the first time their scouting director ever watched him play, he was hitting, and he hit a 500-foot bomb. So some fun stories on CC, who is just so unlike anyone else. And not only is he going to be in the Cleveland Hall of Fame this weekend, but he'll be on the Baseball Hall of Fame for the first time this winter. And I think he stands a decent chance of getting in, if not the first year, certainly in the first two.
Yeah, I think I don't know if he's going to get in the first ballot, but he will. I think those last couple of years, he was tanking with the Yankees at the end, and then he had like a bounce back for 2 years. I think that might have put him over the top those last couple of years.
3,000 strikeouts, 3,500 innings, and people will still look at, the old timers. This is their last guy to get in who they can point to the win total, 251 wins. That's going to be, there won't be many pitchers approaching that maybe ever.
Yeah. And by the way, with Sabathia, obviously you think of, for us, time with the Indians, and certainly Yankee fans think of his time with the Yankees. But in between, that incredible performance for a couple of months where he took the entire Brewer team on his back and almost got him to the World Series, which was, he was just insane that year.
He was going 9 innings every start down the stretch. And by the way, his performance got Cleveland Michael Brantley. Otherwise, they don't get to the playoffs. It would have been Taylor Green, who never really mounted
Michael Brantley, the last Guardians outfielder to hit 20 home runs.
So Kwan's got 2 months to hit 9?
9. He's got it 9.
Or Noel's got 2 months to hit 14 and make Tyvus a genius?
Yeah, I don't think either one gets there, but at least we're getting closer. By the way, CC will also be on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today, I believe at 11:15. Jay is out there with him, so we'll send it to Jay for an interview too. So check out our show. Check out Zach's article. Great stuff. We'll talk to you later on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. Everybody have a great weekend.